Jeremy's hand trembles as he reaches for the factory door. The wire hidden under his collar feels like a noose. The small pistol at his back feels like a lie. Through his earpiece, Seojin's voice cuts through the pre-dawn silence, steady, controlled, barely masking the panic underneath. You don't have to do this. Jeremy closes his eyes. Sees Daniel's terrified face in that photo, blood dried on his temple, tape across his mouth. Sees Taesung's triumphant smile lurking in the shadows behind him. Yes, Jeremy whispers into the wire. I do. His fingers close around the rusted door handle. Somewhere behind him, hidden in the industrial wasteland, Seojin watches through a rifle scope. 37 of his people are positioned around the building. Snipers on rooftops. Watchers on every corner. An army waiting for one signal. But Jeremy has to walk in alone. He pushes the door open. Darkness swallows him whole. If you're just joining us, here's what you need to know. 3 weeks ago, Jeremy Frost, a gifted Omega cellist, accidentally texted a desperate plea for help to the wrong number. His abusive alpha husband, Taesung, had just broken his arm. That wrong number belonged to Seojin, a ruthless Korean mafia boss who'd been obsessed with Jeremy for 5 years after seeing him perform once at an underground concert. Seojin rescued Jeremy with brutal efficiency, delivering his own form of justice to Taesung and bringing Jeremy to his fortress-like penthouse in Seoul. There, in a gilded cage, they fell for each other, a monster learning what it means to love, and an Omega learning to trust again after years of abuse. But Taesung refused to let Jeremy go. He used his connections as a corrupt detective to hunt Jeremy, filing missing person reports and using the law as a weapon. And then he made his final move. He kidnapped Daniel, Jeremy's 22-year-old brother, and set a trap. Now Jeremy walks into that trap, wired and armed, with Seojin's team watching from the shadows. 12 hours to save his brother. One chance to end this. This is part 2. Check the description or pinned comment for part 1. This is how it ends. The factory interior smelled like rust and old blood. Jeremy's eyes adjusted slowly to the darkness, his Omega senses heightened by fear and failing suppressants. Somewhere water dripped. Metal creaked. And underneath it all, he could smell Alpha. Not just 1. 3. Jeremy. Taesung's voice echoed from somewhere ahead, warm and familiar and wrong. I knew you'd come. You always were predictable. Jeremy's hand moved instinctively toward the gun at his back. Stopped. The wire was broadcasting everything. Seojin was listening. The plan was to let Taesung talk, to gather evidence, too. Overhead lights slammed on, blinding. Jeremy threw up his good arm, squinting against the sudden glare. When his vision cleared, his heart dropped into his stomach. The warehouse floor had been prepared like a stage. Daniel sat bound to a chair in the center, head lolling, drugged, Jeremy realized with cold horror. Tape across his mouth, but his eyes were half open, unfocused. And surrounding him, Taesung and 2 other men in police uniforms. Detectives. Jeremy recognized one, Detective Choi, older, hard-faced, the kind who'd been on the force long enough to know where all the bodies were buried. The other was younger, early 30s maybe, uncomfortable posture, eyes that wouldn't quite meet Jeremy's. Beautiful, isn't it? Taesung spread his arms, smile sharp as broken glass. His arm was healed now, the cast Jeremy had given him long gone. I've had 3 weeks to plan this. 3 weeks while you were playing house with that criminal. Jeremy's earpiece crackled. Seojin's voice, tight with control, Jeremy. Count the exits. I need to know. The voice cut out. Static. Then nothing. Jeremy's blood went cold. He touched his collar, felt the wire still there. But the connection was dead. Looking for your Mafia boyfriend? Taesung pulled a small device from his pocket, lead blinking red. Signal jammer. Military grade. Cost me 3 months' salary, but worth every one. Everything you say stays in this room now. No. The plan was falling apart. Without the wire, there was no broadcast, no evidence, no. You seem confused, Taesung continued, circling closer. Let me explain what's about to happen. These are Detectives Choi and Park. They're here as witnesses to your rescue. Rescue? Jeremy's voice came out steadier than he felt. That's right. Taesung's smile widened. See, You were kidnapped 3 weeks ago by a dangerous criminal organization. Seo-jin and his men broke into our home, assaulted a police officer, and took you by force. You've been held against your will, probably drugged, definitely coerced. These officers are here to document your safe return to your lawful alpha. The trap was so much worse than Jeremy had imagined. We have evidence, Tae-sung continued, pulling out a tablet. Security footage of Seo-jin's men removing you from the apartment. Medical records showing you were injured in their custody, that gunshot wound, for instance. Very sloppy of them. I was shot saving Daniel from you. Were you? Tae-sung's voice dropped. Dangerous. Or is that what they told you to say? Because your brother has a very different story. He nodded to Detective Choi, who moved to Daniel, ripped off the tape. Daniel's head lolled up. His eyes were glassy, pupils blown wide. Drugged heavily. Tell them, Tae-sung ordered. Tell them what you told us. Daniel's voice came out slurred, mechanical. Jeremy? Jeremy came with them. Willingly. His not stable. Needs help. Needs his alpha. No. Jeremy's voice cracked. Daniel, that's not, they drugged you, they. Careful, Detective Choi interrupted, hand resting on his service weapon. You're making accusations against police officers. That's a serious crime. The younger detective, Park, shifted uncomfortably. His eyes flicked to Daniel, to Tae-sung, back to Jeremy. Something in his expression looked wrong. Uncertain. Jeremy's mind raced. The wire was dead. Seo-jin couldn't hear. The witnesses were corrupt. Daniel was drugged into false testimony. And any moment now, Seo-jin's team would lose patience and storm the building, right into a trap where they'd be arrested for assaulting police officers and kidnapping in Omega. Tae-sung won. He'd actually won. So here's what happens now, Tae-sung said, close enough that Jeremy could smell him, alpha pheromones mixed with cologne and something sour underneath. You're going to tell these nice detectives that you want to come home. That you were confused, scared, manipulated by criminals. You're going to get in that police car, and we're going to drive away. Your brother will be released, after he confirms your story on camera, of course. And if I refuse? Tae-sung's smile disappeared. Then Daniel has a tragic accident. Falls, hits his head. Dies in police custody due to complications from the drugs your Mafia boyfriend pumped into him. You get charged as an accomplice. And Seo-jin? His voice dropped to a whisper. I've got 20 officers on standby. The moment he shows his face, we light him up. Legal, justified, and you get to watch him die knowing it's your fault. Jeremy's hands clenched. The panic button was still in his pocket. He could trigger it right now, call Seo-jin's team in. But they'd be walking into a massacre. Police versus criminals. The law would side with Tae-sung every time. You have 30 seconds to decide, Tae-sung said. Your freedom or everyone you love. In his pocket, Jeremy's fingers closed around the panic device. In the shadows outside, Seo-jin stared at the silent receiver, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring. Minute Ho stood beside him, waiting for orders. The wire's dead, Seo-jin said, voice like winter. He's in there alone. We can breach. They'll kill him. Seo-jin's hands were shaking, actually shaking. Tae-sung planned for this. He has contingencies. If we go in loud, Jeremy dies. So what do we do? Seo-jin closed his eyes. Saw Jeremy's face as he walked toward that factory. Remembered his words, let me choose this. Let me choose to fight. We trust him, Seo-jin said, though it felt like swallowing glass. We trust Jeremy to survive long enough for us to find another way in. Inside the factory, Jeremy looked at his brother's drugged face. At Tae-sung's triumphant smile. At Detective Park's uncomfortable expression and Detective Choi's cold certainty. The panic button was in his hand. He didn't press it. Okay, Jeremy said quietly. I'll come with you. Tae-sung's smile was victory in poison. Smart Omega. I knew you'd see reason. But first, Jeremy continued, voice steady despite his hammering heart, I want to make sure Daniel's okay. Let me check his pulse, make sure whatever you gave him isn't killing him. You have 1 minute. Jeremy crossed to his brother, knelt beside the chair. leaned in close like he was checking Daniel's neck, and whispered, so quiet only his brother could possibly hear. Danny, I know you can hear me under the drugs. Blink twice if you understand. Daniel's glazed eyes focused, just slightly. Blinked. Once. Twice. When I say now, full left. Stay down. Trust me. Daniel's finger twitched. Agreement. Jeremy stood, turned back to Taesung. He needs a hospital. He'll get one. After you cooperate. Fine. Jeremy moved back toward the detectives, hands visible, non-threatening. I'll give my statement. I'll say whatever you want. He was 3 steps away from Detective Park when he stumbled, deliberately, awkwardly, like his legs gave out from stress. Park moved on instinct, reaching out to catch him. And Jeremy's hand closed around the young detective's service weapon. Now. Everything happened at once. Daniel threw himself left, chair and all, hitting the concrete as Jeremy had told him. Jeremy yanked Park's gun free, spun, and fired, not at people, at the industrial lights overhead. Glass exploded. Darkness slammed down. And in the chaos, Jeremy screamed into the dead wire, Seojin. Breach now. They have Daniel. Breach. The gunshot that cut him off echoed like the end of the world. The bullet meant for Jeremy hit the concrete wall behind him, spraying chips of stone and dust. He'd moved on pure instinct, dropped and rolled right as Taesung fired. Detective Choi's gun was out now too, aimed into the darkness where Jeremy had disappeared. Nobody fucking move. But Jeremy was already moving. He couldn't see, could barely breathe through the adrenaline, but he knew where Daniel was, left, 3 meters, on the ground in the chair. Breach. 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 The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Seojin's team had heard Jeremy scream, Jammer be damned. The factory's side doors exploded inward. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Laser sights painted red dots across walls, across bodies, across chaos. Police. Drop your weapons. Everyone down. Now. It was impossible to tell who was shouting, Seojin's men or Taesung's corrupt cops or. The muzzle flash from Detective Choi's gun lit up the darkness. Someone screamed. Jeremy couldn't tell who. He reached Daniel, felt blindly for the zip ties binding his brother to the chair. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely. Jeremy, move. Detective Park's voice. And then Park was there, yanking Jeremy backward just as another shot tore through the space where he'd been kneeling. What are you? Shut up and stay down. Park shoved something into Jeremy's hands, his own gun. I'm not dying for this. Choi didn't tell me we were executing people. You're helping me? I'm getting court-martialed either way. Might as well do it for the right reasons. Park's hands worked fast on Daniel's restraints. Can you carry him? He's my brother. I'll carry him. The zip ties snapped. Daniel slumped forward, dead weight. Jeremy caught him, muscles screaming as he hauled his brother up and over his shoulder. Daniel was bigger, heavier, and Jeremy's healing arm wasn't ready for this, but... Jeremy. Seojin's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He was inside the building now, and the cold calculated Mafia boss was gone. This was pure alpha instinct, pure terror barely leashed. Here. Jeremy shouted back. I have Daniel. I'm. The gunshot was close. Too close. Jeremy felt the impact before the pain, a sledgehammer to his left side, spinning him around. Daniel fell from his shoulder. Jeremy hit the ground hard enough to taste blood. Oh, he thought distantly. I've been shot. No. Seojin's scream wasn't human. It was the sound of something breaking, something fundamental and irreversible. Through the darkness and the chaos, Jeremy saw him, Seojin, gun in hand, face twisted with an expression Jeremy had never seen on him. Not cold fury. Not calculated violence. Raw, absolute terror. Seojin fired. Once, twice, 3 times. Each shot precise, lethal, and Jeremy didn't see where they landed because his vision was graying at the edges. Jeremy, stay with me. Detective Park was suddenly there, hands pressing against Jeremy's side. His palms came away dark and wet. Shit. Shit. We need a medic. Danny, Jeremy managed. Is Danny? Your brother's fine. You're not. Stop talking. But Jeremy couldn't stop. Blood pooled hot beneath him, and somewhere in the distance, he could hear more gunshots, more shouting, the sound of Seojin's voice screaming orders in Korean. Don't let anyone leave alive. Seojin. Jeremy tried to move, to reach for him, but his body wouldn't respond. Don't kill them all. Please. You'll never come back from that. And then Seojin was there, dropping to his knees beside Jeremy with such force that Jeremy heard the crack of kneecaps hitting concrete. His hands replaced Park's, larger, shaking so violently that Jeremy felt every tremor. Don't you dare. Seojin's voice was wrecked, broken, nothing like the man who'd commanded empires. Don't you fucking dare leave me. Not planning on it. Jeremy tried to smile. Failed. Is Danny safe? Minute-Ho has him. He's safe. You saved him. Seojin's hands pressed harder against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding, but there was so much blood. You saved everyone. Now let me save you. You already did. 5 years ago. You just didn't know it yet. Jeremy, no. Stay awake. Look at me. Look at me. Jeremy's eyes were so heavy. Seojin's face kept blurring, doubling, fading. But he was beautiful like this, all his walls shattered, all his careful control gone. Just a man, terrified of losing something precious. Love you, Jeremy whispered, and wasn't sure if he meant it or if it was just the blood loss talking or if there was even a difference anymore. No. Seojin's voice cracked completely. Tears, actual tears, cut tracks through the blood and dust on his face. You don't get to say that now. You say it later. You say it when you're healed and safe and in our home. You say it when you mean it. Not now. Not like this. Ambulance is 2 minutes out. Someone shouted, Minute-Ho probably. He doesn't have 2 minutes. Seojin pressed his forehead to Jeremy's, and his scent wrapped around them both, frost and smoke and desperation. Please. Please, Jeremy. Hold on. I'm not ready. I've waited 5 years and I'm still not ready to lose you. Jeremy's hand found Seojin's face, left a bloody handprint on his cheek. You won't. I'm too stubborn to die. Ask Danny. His eyes closed. Jeremy? Jeremy. But the darkness was warm and soft and quiet, and Jeremy let it take him. Behind him, Seojin held Jeremy's body and made a sound like an animal dying, raw and broken and absolutely devastated. Around them, the firefight ended. Tae-sung was on the ground, bleeding from his shoulder, Choi beside him in handcuffs. Detective Park stood with his hands up, watching the Mafia boss cradle an Omega and sob. And somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Too late. Always too late. The ambulance ride was 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Seojin counted every single one. Jeremy's heart stopped twice. The first time, the paramedic, a beta woman with steady hands and a voice too calm for the circumstances, shocked him back. Seojin watched Jeremy's body convulse, watched his face go slack, watched the monitor spike back to life. The second time, Seojin stopped counting seconds and started bargaining with gods he didn't believe in. Take anything. My empire. My life. Everything I've built. Just let him breathe. The monitor beeped. Steady. Weak. But steady. We're losing him, the paramedic said, hands moving with practiced efficiency. He's lost too much blood. We need to. Then take mine. Seojin's voice was steel wrapped in desperation. I'm Alpha. Universal donor. Take whatever you need. Sir, that's not how. I said take it. Seojin grabbed her wrist, and something in his eyes made her recoil. Not from fear. From recognition. She saw what he was, what he'd always been. A monster. But a monster that would bleed himself dry if it meant keeping Jeremy alive. She set up the transfusion. By the time they reached Seoul Medical Center, Seojin's blood was flowing into Jeremy's veins, and he'd never felt more human in his entire life. The surgery took 4 hours. Seojin sat in the waiting room, private wing, 4th floor, the kind of place where money bought silence and discretion, and slowly fell apart. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. His clothes were soaked with blood. Jeremy's blood, his blood, it didn't matter anymore. He tried to clean his face once, seen Jeremy's handprint still visible on his cheek, and stopped. He wore Jeremy's blood like penance. Minute Ho appeared an hour in with Daniel, who was conscious now, the drugs wearing off enough that his eyes focused. Where is he? Daniel's voice was hoarse. Where's Jeremy? Surgery. Seojin didn't look up. Couldn't. If he looked at Jeremy's brother right now, he'd see the accusation he deserved. You promised to protect him. You failed. But Daniel didn't accuse. He just sat down in the chair beside Seojin, trembling. He saved me, Daniel whispered. He got shot saving me. He got shot because I let him walk into that factory. Seojin's voice was hollow. I should have locked him in the penthouse. Should have stormed the building the second Taesung made contact. Should have. He would have hated you for it. Daniel's interruption was quiet but firm. Jeremy spent 3 years being controlled. You would have been just another person taking his choices away. Better he hate me alive than love me dead. He's not dead. Not yet. Seojin finally looked at Daniel, and the young man flinched at whatever he saw in Seojin's eyes. But he might be. Because I let him choose. Because I loved him enough to respect his agency and not enough to keep him safe. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then, he told me about you. Before all this. Said you were the first person in years who made him feel like a person instead of property. I'm a criminal. A killer. I've destroyed lives, ended bloodlines, built an empire on corpses. Seojin's laugh was broken. And the one good thing I've ever wanted, I can't even keep alive. He's strong. He'll survive this. He shouldn't have to. Seojin's hands clenched into fists. He's survived enough. He's endured enough. He deserves peace and safety and a life without, his voice cracked. Without monsters like me putting him in danger. Minute Ho shifted uncomfortably by the door. He'd known Seojin for 15 years, had seen him execute rivals without blinking, had watched him build an empire through cold calculation. He'd never seen him cry. Boss, Minute Ho said quietly. Taesung is in custody. Detective Park turned state's witness. The entire corruption network is going down. We won. Did we? Seojin looked at his blood-soaked hands. What did we win, Minute Ho? What prize is worth this? No one answered. The surgeon appeared at hour 4, still in her scrubs, exhaustion evident in every line of her face. Seojin was on his feet before she finished pushing through the doors. He's alive. She said it quickly, like she knew that was the only thing that mattered. The bullet missed his major organs but caused significant internal bleeding. We had to remove part of his spleen and repair damage to his intestinal wall. He's stable now, but what? Seojin's voice was dangerous. He's not out of danger. The next 72 hours are critical. If infection sets in, if there are complications. She met Seojin's eyes. He lost a lot of blood. His body has been through severe trauma. Between the shooting and the previous injuries from his husband, his system is compromised. Can I see him? He's in recovery. Unconscious. It'll be hours before he wakes, if, she caught herself. When he wakes. I don't care. I need to see him. The surgeon nodded, and something in her expression softened. Room 447. But Mr. Seojin? When he wakes up, he's going to need stability. Calm. Not. She gestured at his blood-soaked appearance, his shaking hands, the barely leashed violence in his posture. Not whatever this is. I'll manage. Will you? It wasn't a challenge. It was genuine concern. Because that man in there just took a bullet for his brother. He's going to need someone strong enough to help him heal. Are you that person, or are you going to fall apart? Seojin looked at his hands. Saw them still trembling. I don't know, he admitted. The most honest thing he'd said in years. Then figure it out. The surgeon turned to leave, paused. For what it's worth. The transfusion you insisted on probably saved his life. Sometimes loving someone means giving them your blood. She disappeared back through the surgical doors. Seojin stood there for 10 seconds. Then he turned to Daniel. Stay with him. I need 20 minutes. Where are you going? To become someone worthy of being in that room. Seo-jin returned 90 minutes later, showered and changed into clothes Minute-ho had brought. The blood was gone. The shaking was controlled. The mask was back in place, not perfect, cracks visible, but functional. He entered room 447 like a man approaching an altar. Jeremy looked impossibly small in the hospital bed. Tubes and wires connected him to machines that beeped with mechanical precision. His face was pale, bruised, peaceful in unconsciousness. Alive. Seo-jin pulled a chair to the bedside. Took Jeremy's hand, carefully, so carefully, and pressed it to his forehead. "I'm here," he whispered to the unconscious Omega. "I'm here, and I'm not leaving. Not for business, not for empire, not for anything. You're my priority now. My only priority." Jeremy's heart monitor beeped steadily. Outside, Seoul woke to news of a massive police corruption scandal. Detective Tae-sung and 3 others arrested. An Omega rights activist calling for reform. Inside room 447, a monster held the hand of his salvation and waited. Jeremy woke to the smell of antiseptic and jasmine. Not the industrial hospital smell, something softer. Someone had brought flowers. His eyes cracked open slowly, vision blurry, and the first thing he saw was Seo-jin. Asleep in the chair beside the bed, head tilted at an angle that would leave his neck screaming, one hand wrapped around Jeremy's like a lifeline. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed, wearing the same clothes he'd been in for what looked like days. Beautiful and terrible and utterly human. Jeremy's throat was dry as sand. He tried to speak, managed only a rasp. Seo-jin's eyes snapped open instantly. For half a second, his expression was raw, hope and fear and desperate relief all at once. Then he tried to school it into something more controlled, failed completely. "Jeremy." His voice cracked on the name. "You're awake. Don't move, let me call the doctor." "How long?" Jeremy's voice was barely a whisper. 3 days. Seo-jin was already pressing the call button, but his eyes never left Jeremy's face, like he was afraid Jeremy would disappear if he looked away. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. You died twice in the ambulance, once in surgery." "Danny?" "Safe. Fully recovered. He's been here every day." Seo-jin's thumb traced circles on the back of Jeremy's hand, an unconscious gesture that betrayed how close to the edge he'd been. "He's at the hotel now, sleeping. Minute-ho's watching him." "Tae-sung?" Seo-jin's expression went carefully blank. "In custody. For now." Something in those last 2 words made Jeremy's heart skip. What does that mean? "It means," Seo-jin stopped as the doctor entered, started his examination. Checked vitals, looked at the surgical site, asked Jeremy questions about pain levels and nausea and whether he could feel his toes. Jeremy answered mechanically, but his eyes stayed on Seo-jin, who'd retreated to the corner of the room, arms crossed, watching with that predator stillness he wore when he was planning violence. When the doctor finally left with assurances that Jeremy's recovery was remarkably positive given the circumstances, Jeremy spoke before Seo-jin could deflect again. "What are you planning to do to him?" Seo-jin was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved back to the bedside, sat down, and met Jeremy's eyes with complete honesty. "I haven't decided yet." Seo-jin. "He's in a holding cell in the basement of a warehouse I own. Not the factory, somewhere cleaner. More private." Seo-jin's voice was perfectly level, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Detective Park's testimony and the evidence we've gathered will put him away for years. But prison sentences can be negotiated. Reduced. He has connections, Jeremy. Even now. So you want to kill him?" "I want," Seo-jin stopped, jaw clenching. "I want to erase him. Not just kill him, I want to make it so he never existed. For what he did to you. For what he almost took from me." Jeremy's chest ached, and not just from the surgical incision. "And that's supposed to make it better? Him dead?" "It would make me feel better." Seo-jin's honesty was brutal. Watching him beg. Watching him understand what it feels like to be helpless. To know pain is coming and be unable to stop it. Everything he did to you, reflected back. That's not justice. That's revenge. "I know." Seo-jin leaned forward, and his eyes were absolutely merciless. "And I don't care. He shot you, Jeremy. You died in my arms because of him. Do you have any idea what that did to me? What it's still doing to me? I'm alive. Barely. By luck and spite and sheer stubbornness. Seojin's voice dropped to something raw. The surgeon said if the bullet had hit 2 centimeters to the left, you'd have bled out before we reached the hospital. 2 centimeters. That's how close I came to losing you. Jeremy's free hand moved to cup Seojin's face, thumb brushing over the sharp line of his cheekbone. But you didn't lose me. I'm here. Because of chance. Not because Taesung showed mercy or had a change of heart. He meant to kill you, Jeremy. If his aim had been better, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I know. Jeremy's voice was soft but steady. But we are having this conversation. And I'm asking you, begging you, don't kill him. Seojin went very still. Why? Because I don't want you to become that for me. To cross that line because of me. I've killed before. For business. For your empire. I know what you are, Seojin. I'm not naive. Jeremy's grip tightened. But this would be different. This would be murder because someone hurt me. And I don't want that weight on your soul. On our relationship. On everything we could be. He deserves to die. Maybe. Probably. Jeremy's voice was fierce despite his weakness. But I deserve to not live with the knowledge that you became a murderer because of me. That every time you touch me, I'll wonder if there's blood under your fingernails. His blood. Put there for me. Seojin's expression did something complicated, anger and grief and understanding all at once. You're asking me to let him live. I'm asking you to let the law handle him. To be better than him. Jeremy pulled Seojin closer, until their foreheads touched. You told me once you wanted to be someone who could deserve me choosing you. This is how. By choosing mercy when everything in you screams for vengeance. I don't know if I can. Yes, you can. Jeremy's voice was absolute certainty. Because you love me. And love means making the hard choice. The right choice. Even when it hurts. Seojin's breath shuddered. If I do this, if I let him live, I need you to understand something. What? Death would be mercy compared to what I'm going to do to him instead. Seojin's smile was absolutely predatory. Prison is full of people who owe me favors. People who understand what happens to men who hurt Omegas. He'll go to jail, Jeremy. But every single day there will be hell. Jeremy should have been horrified. Should have protested. Instead, he felt a dark satisfaction settle in his chest. That's not murder. No. It's worse. It's suffering without the release of death. Seojin's eyes searched Jeremy's face. Can you live with that? With me doing that? Jeremy thought about 3 years of abuse. About suppressants forced down his throat. About a broken arm and stolen music and autonomy crushed under the weight of Alpha's rights. Yes, he said. I can live with that. Seojin kissed him then, gentle, reverent, tasting of relief and coffee and 3 days without sleep. When they broke apart, his eyes were wet. I don't deserve you. No, Jeremy agreed. But you're trying to. And that's enough. 4 hours later, Seojin entered the warehouse basement where Taesung was being held. The former detective looked up from his cot, face bruised from the arrest, arm in a sling from Seojin's bullet. When he saw who'd entered, fear flickered across his expression before pride masked it. Come to finish the job. Taesung's voice was defiant. Go ahead. Make me a martyr. Give my lawyers ammunition. Seojin stood in the doorway, perfectly still, perfectly controlled. No, he said quietly. I'm not going to kill you. Taesung's expression shifted, confusion, then wariness. Jeremy asked me not to. Said he wanted me to be better. Seojin's smile was absolutely terrible. So I'm going to be better. I'm going to let the courts handle you. Let you go to prison through proper legal channels. Then why are you here? To make you a promise. Seojin stepped closer, and even through bars, Taesung flinched. You're going to Bukbu prison. Maximum security. And I own that place. Not officially, but every guard who matters, every inmate with influence, they are mine. Or they owe me. Taesung's face went pale. Every day, Seojin continued, voice like silk over steel, you're going to wake up knowing you're at my mercy. Knowing that the guards won't come when you call. Knowing that the inmates know exactly what you did. Former cop. Omega abuser. Child kidnapper. You'll be the most hated man in there. You can't. I already have. The transfers are arranged. Your cell assignment is done. Your roommates are very eager to meet you. Seojin leaned closer to the bars. Death would be mercy, Taesung. You don't deserve mercy. He turned to leave, paused at the door. Oh, and one more thing. Jeremy? He's going to heal. He's going to thrive. He's going to play his cello and love his brother and build a life so beautiful you couldn't even imagine it. And you're going to rot in that cell knowing you failed. That he won. That we won. Seojin walked out. Behind him, Taesung's scream of rage echoed off concrete walls. It sounded like music. 2 weeks passed in the private hospital wing. Jeremy healed slowly. The surgical site knitted itself back together under careful monitoring. His body, battered by years of abuse and now a gunshot wound, fought back with stubborn resilience. Physical therapy started on day 5. Walking without assistance by day 10. Playing simple scales on the cello Seojin had brought to his room by day 12. But some wounds didn't heal as cleanly. Jeremy woke screaming twice. Once from a nightmare where Taesung's bullet found Daniel instead. Once from a memory of being trapped in that bathroom, arm shattered, waiting for a door to splinter. Both times, Seojin was there. Didn't try to fix it, didn't offer empty platitudes. Just held Jeremy until the shaking stopped and his breathing evened out. I'm supposed to be over this, Jeremy said the second time, voice rough from screaming. He's in prison. I'm safe. Why can't I just? Trauma doesn't work on a schedule. Seojin's fingers carded through Jeremy's hair, gentle. You spent 3 years in survival mode. Your body doesn't know how to stop yet. How do you know? Because I've been in survival mode for 20 years. Seojin's voice was quiet. It doesn't just turn off because the threat is gone. It takes time. Therapy. Safety that your nervous system actually believes in, not just knows intellectually. Jeremy looked up at him. You're in therapy? Starting next week. You're not the only one who needs to heal. Seojin managed a small smile. I promise to be someone worthy of you. That means doing the work. Something warm bloomed in Jeremy's chest. Not the bond, that was still Taesung's mark on his neck, still legally active. But something deeper. Choice. Understanding. Partnership. Thank you, Jeremy whispered. For what? For not being perfect. For being real. Seojin kissed his forehead, and they sat in comfortable silence until Jeremy fell back asleep. Daniel visited every afternoon, bringing books and gossip and normalcy Jeremy desperately needed. On day 16, he brought something else, courage. I need to apologize, Daniel said, sitting in the visitor's chair Seojin had vacated. For not seeing it. For 3 years, I didn't see what he was doing to you. I hid it well. Jeremy set down the book he'd been pretending to read. And Taesung made sure I stayed isolated. It's not your fault. I'm your brother. I should have, Daniel's voice cracked. You called me that night. Asked for help. And I didn't answer. You were in class. I saw the missed call. So it was you. And I ignored it because I was still angry that you'd cut me out of your life. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. If I just picked up the phone. Then you would have what? Rushed to the apartment and gotten hurt too. Jeremy reached over, grabbed his brother's hand. Danny, listen to me. You were 20 years old when I married him. You tried to warn me and I didn't listen. None of this is on you. You were trying to protect me. I was being stubborn and proud and stupid. Jeremy's smile was sad. But I'm trying to be better. And part of that means letting you back in. Really in. No more walls. Daniel's eyes were wet. I want that. I want my brother back. You have him. Scarred and healing and probably going to need a lot of therapy, but you have him. They hugged, carefully, mindful of Jeremy's injuries, and it felt like something fundamental clicking back into place. Family. Safety. Home. When they broke apart, Daniel's expression shifted to something more serious. Can I ask you something? About him. He didn't need to say which him he meant. Seo-jin? Yeah. Are you? Daniel struggled for words. Are you with him because you want to be, or because you feel like you owe him? Because he saved you? Jeremy had been asking himself the same question for 2 weeks. I don't know yet, he admitted. I know what I feel when he's in the room. Safe. Seen. Like I matter as more than just my designation. But I also know I'm recovering from trauma, my judgment might be compromised, and he's objectively dangerous. So why stay? Because for the first time in years, I get to choose. Jeremy's voice was firm. Not biology, not legal bonds, not fear. I'm choosing to see where this goes. And if I decide it's not right, I can choose to leave. That's the difference. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay. But Jeremy? If you ever need to leave, you call me. Immediately. Promise me. I promise. Good. Daniel settled back in his chair. Also, he's terrifying. Like, actually terrifying. He smiled at me yesterday and I thought I was going to die. Jeremy laughed, really laughed, for the first time since the shooting. He's not that bad once you get to know him. He runs a criminal empire. Nobody's perfect. They dissolved into slightly hysterical giggles, and for a moment, Jeremy felt almost normal again. On day 18, the lawyer came. Her name was Jung Ha-won, and she looked like she ate opposing counsel for breakfast. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, and a briefcase that probably cost more than a car. Mr. Frost, she said, sitting across from Jeremy in the small conference room Minato had arranged. I've been retained to handle your legal situation. By Seo-jin. By Mr. Seo-jin, yes. But my loyalty is to you and the law, in that order. She pulled out a tablet. We have several issues to address. The primary one being your bond. Jeremy's hand moved unconsciously to his neck, where Taesung's mark still sat like a brand. I thought, with him in prison. The bond is still legally valid. In South Korea, only death, mutual consent, or a lengthy legal process can dissolve a registered bond. Her expression was sympathetic but clinical. Taesung is refusing to consent. And the legal process typically takes 2 to 3 years. Jeremy's stomach dropped. 3 years. Minimum. Omega protection laws are designed to preserve bonds, not dissolve them. The courts assume reconciliation is preferable to separation. She pulled up a document. However, given the criminal charges, the documented abuse, and the media attention, we may be able to expedite. Media attention. Ha-won's expression shifted slightly. Mr. Frost, your case has become high profile. The corruption scandal, the Omega rights implications, the dramatic rescue. Several news outlets are covering it. Activist groups are using your story to push for legal reform. I didn't ask for that. No one asked you. But it's happening. She leaned forward. Which brings me to option 2. You could go public. Give testimony. Make your case to the court of public opinion while we fight the legal battle. It would put pressure on the courts to expedite, might even force legislative action. Or it could destroy what's left of my privacy. Yes. She didn't sugarcoat it. You'd become the face of Omega rights reform. Recognizable. Your story dissected by strangers. It would be invasive and exhausting. Jeremy closed his eyes. What does Seo-jin think? Mr. Seo-jin thinks you should do whatever makes you feel safest. His words, not mine. Of course he did. Because Seo-jin understood what it meant to have choices stolen. How long do I have to decide? The preliminary hearing is in 3 weeks. If you're going to go public, it should be before then. Ha-won stood. Think about it. But Mr. Frost? Whatever you decide, know that I will fight for you. You deserve to be free. After she left, Jeremy sat in the quiet conference room and thought about freedom. About 3 years stolen. About an Omega somewhere, right now, trapped like he'd been. About having the power to change that. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be comfortable. But neither was getting shot. And he'd survived that. The preliminary hearing was held in Seoul Family Court, 4th floor, in a room that smelled like floor polish and institutional disappointment. Jeremy sat at the plaintiff's table beside Jung Ha-won, wearing a suit Seo-jin had bought him, charcoal gray, expensive, armor disguised as clothing. His side still ached from the surgery. His hands trembled slightly whenever he thought too hard about what came next. Across the aisle, Tae-sung's lawyer, a man named Kim Jae-hyun with a reputation for defending the indefensible, shuffled papers with theatrical precision. Tae-sung himself sat in prison orange, wrists shackled, looking thinner than Jeremy remembered but still wearing that same expression. Ownership. Entitlement. The look of a man who believed he'd already won. The judge entered. Everyone rose. And the dismantling of Jeremy's dignity began. Your Honor, Kim Jae-hyun's voice was smooth as oil. We're here today because my client, a decorated police detective with 15 years of exemplary service, has been falsely accused by an Omega who was kidnapped and manipulated by a known criminal organization. Ha-won was on her feet immediately. Objection. Detective Kim is testifying rather than presenting. I'll allow some latitude for opening statements, the judge said, voice tired. Continue, Mr. Kim. Thank you, Your Honor. The facts are simple. Mr. Frost's mental health has been deteriorating for years. Multiple incidents of erratic behavior, discontinuation of his suppressant medication against medical advice, unfounded accusations against my client, all documented. He pulled up records on the courtroom screen. On the night in question, Mr. Frost sent a text to a criminal, not accidentally, but deliberately, as part of a plan to escape his legal bond and pursue a relationship with said criminal. Jeremy's nails dug into his palms. Every word was a lie wrapped in just enough truth to sound plausible. Furthermore, Kim continued, my client filed a missing person report within hours. Used every legal resource available to find his bonded Omega. And when he located Mr. Frost, held captive in a penthouse owned by Seo-jin, a man with documented ties to organized crime, he attempted a lawful rescue. For this, he was shot, assaulted, and falsely imprisoned. That's not, Jeremy started, but Ha-won's hand on his arm stopped him. The evidence will show, Kim's voice rose, playing to the room, that Mr. Frost was not rescued. He was stolen. Coerced. Possibly drugged. And now, suffering from what can only be described as Stockholm Syndrome, he's been convinced his kidnapper is his savior. The judge made a note. Ms. Jung, your response. Ha-won stood, and her voice was ice. Your Honor, the evidence will show that Detective Tae-sung systematically abused my client for 3 years. Hospital records document 17 separate incidents of injury requiring medical treatment, all explained away as accidents. We have testimony from medical professionals, from Mr. Frost's brother, and from Detective Park Minute-jun, who witnessed the defendant's confession at the factory. Detective Park is a disgraced officer facing his own criminal charges, Kim interjected. Detective Park is a whistleblower who exposed corruption in your client's precinct. Ha-won's smile was sharp. But perhaps we should let the evidence speak for itself. I'd like to present Exhibit A, security footage from the Frost apartment, showing. Objection. That footage was obtained illegally by a criminal organization. It was obtained by a private security firm and has been authenticated by independent experts. The judge rubbed his temples. I'll review the footage in chambers. What else, Ms. Jung? Medical records. Testimony from. All circumstantial, Kim interrupted. Your Honor, the real question here isn't whether my client disciplined his Omega, which is his legal right within the bounds of their bond, but whether this court will allow a criminal to kidnap a bonded Omega and face no consequences. Jeremy felt something crack inside his chest. Disciplined. Like he was a child. Like he was property. Ha-won's voice cut through the fog. Your Honor, we're also filing a motion to dissolve the bond on grounds of abuse, coercion, and endangerment. Which my client contests. The bond was entered into legally and should be preserved according to Omega protection statutes. Statutes designed to protect Omegas, not imprison them with their abusers. The judge's gavel cracked down. Enough. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks for testimony. Until then, Detective Tae-sung remains in custody on the criminal charges. The bond remains legally active. Court dismissed. Jeremy sat frozen as the room emptied. Legally active. Still bonded. Still his. Jeremy. Howon's voice was gentle. This is just the first round. We knew this wouldn't be easy. He called it discipline. Jeremy's voice was hollow. And the judge didn't even flinch. I know. But we're building a case. Park's testimony alone will. It's not enough. Jeremy looked at her. Is it? Even with everything, they might rule in his favor because the law is designed to keep Omegas bonded. Howon's silence was answer enough. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. News vans. Reporters. A small crowd of Omega rights activists holding signs, bonds aren't chains and Jeremy Frost equals freedom. Jeremy froze on the steps. We can go around back, Minute said quietly. He'd been waiting, along with 4 other security personnel. But Jeremy saw something in that crowd. A young Omega, maybe 19, holding a sign that read "You saved me." Their eyes met. The Omega mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Jeremy thought about Howon's offer. Go public. Make this mean something. He thought about hiding. About letting lawyers fight battles in closed courtrooms while Omegas like that teenager suffered in silence. He thought about what Seo-jin had said, "You deserve to be free." Not just him. All of them. Jeremy turned to Howon. Set up a press conference. Are you sure? No. Jeremy's hands were shaking. But I'm doing it anyway. The press conference was scheduled for 3 days later. In those 3 days, Jeremy's story exploded across social media. #Justice for Jeremy Frost trended nationwide. News outlets ran segments on Omega rights. The activist groups organized protests outside the courthouse. Someone started a petition for legal reform that gathered 50,000 signatures in 48 hours. And in a hotel suite, Jeremy practiced his statement with Daniel beside him and Seo-jin watching from the corner, present but not hovering, supportive but not controlling. You don't have to do this, Seo-jin said for the 10th time. I know. Jeremy looked at his prepared speech, covered in edits and crossouts. But I want to. For that kid outside the courthouse. For everyone still trapped. Then I'll be there. Front row. You'll be recognized. Photographed. Your face will be everywhere. Seo-jin's smile was grim. Good. Let them see exactly who I am. Let them see I'm not ashamed of loving you. Daniel cleared his throat. For what it's worth. I think you're both insane and very brave. Possibly in that order. Jeremy laughed despite himself. Probably accurate. The press conference was tomorrow. Tonight, Jeremy rewrote his speech one final time. Not as a victim. As a survivor who refused to stay silent. The press conference room was packed. Reporters from every major outlet. Cameras. Recording devices. The low murmur of anticipation that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Jeremy sat at the table, microphone in front of him, and tried to remember how to breathe. Howon sat to his left. Daniel to his right. In the front row, exactly where he'd promised, Seo-jin watched with an expression that said, I'm here. You're not alone. Mr. Frost, a reporter called before Howon could even start. Is it true you're romantically involved with the Mafia boss who kidnapped you? Jeremy's prepared speech felt inadequate suddenly. All those careful words, those practiced phrases, they weren't what these people needed to hear. He pushed the paper aside. My name is Jeremy Frost, he said, voice steadier than he felt. I'm 28 years old. I'm an Omega. And for 3 years, I was trapped in a marriage that almost killed me. The room went silent. I didn't come here to talk about who I'm dating or who saved me. I came here because right now, somewhere in Seoul, there's an Omega sitting in a bathroom with a broken arm, wondering if this is just how life is supposed to be. And I want them to know it's not. He looked directly at the cameras. The law says that once you're bonded, you belong to your alpha. That running away is grounds for mandatory counseling. That abuse has to be severe and documented before you can even request dissolution. And even then, it takes years. Years of staying bonded to your abuser while lawyers argue about whether you deserve freedom. A reporter raised her hand. Are you saying Detective Tai-sung abused you? I'm saying he broke my arm and told me it was my fault for startling him. I'm saying he controlled my suppressants, isolated me from my family, and made me believe I deserved everything he did to me. Jeremy's voice didn't shake. Not anymore. I'm saying I sent a text to the wrong number because I was that desperate. And I'm saying I'm one of the lucky ones, because that wrong number answered. But the man who answered is a criminal. The man who answered saw me as a person, not property. Jeremy met the reporter's eyes. And yes, I know what he is. I know he's dangerous. But he's never once made me feel like I belonged to him. Like I was his to control. And that's more than I can say for the man I was legally bonded to. Another reporter, what do you want, Mr. Frost? I want the law to change. I want Omegas to have the right to dissolve abusive bonds without years of legal battles. I want abusers to face real consequences, not just have their wrists slapped. I want, his voice cracked slightly. I want the next person who needs help to be able to ask for it without being told they're hysterical or unstable or making it up. And what about Seo-jin? Will you bond with him? Jeremy looked at Seo-jin, saw the careful neutrality in his expression that meant he was screaming inside. I don't know, Jeremy said honestly. Right now, I'm still bonded to a man who broke me. I'm still healing from being shot. I'm still learning how to exist without fear. Maybe someday I'll choose to bond with someone. But it will be a choice. Not biology, not law, not desperation. Choice. He stood up. That's all I have to say. Thank you. The room erupted with questions, but Jeremy walked out, Daniel and Howon flanking him, Seo-jin and Minute-ho clearing a path. Outside, the young Omega from the courthouse steps was waiting. They locked eyes. The teenager mouthed, I'm leaving him tonight. Jeremy nodded. Good. The video went viral within hours. 5 million views by midnight. 10 million by morning. News segments analyzed every word. Social media exploded with #Omega Rights Now and #Change the Law. But virality had a cost. The backtrace came fast and vicious. Traditional alphas called Jeremy a disgrace to Omega dignity. Conservative groups accused him of destroying the sanctity of bonds. Someone doxed his address, his old address, thank God, but still. And worst of all, the defense used it. Your Honor, Kim Jae-hyun's voice was smoothed 2 weeks later in court. Mr. Frost's press conference proves our point exactly. He's been manipulated into becoming a political tool for radical activists. This isn't about abuse, it's about an agenda. An agenda? Howon's voice was ice. The agenda of not being beaten by your alpha. Alleged beating. Unproven beating. Kim pulled up a new document. We have 3 character witnesses who will testify that Detective Tae-sung was a model alpha. Caring, protective. We have 17 hospital visits. Accidents. Documented as such by Mr. Frost himself at the time. Because Tae-sung had been standing right there. Because Jeremy had been too afraid to tell the truth. Your Honor, Howon continued, would like to enter new evidence. Security footage from the apartment building showing. Obtained illegally. Showing Detective Tae-sung dragging Mr. Frost by his hair into their apartment while Mr. Frost screamed for help. The courtroom went silent. The judge leaned forward. When was this footage dated? 6 months before the incident in question. Building security kept it because a neighbor filed a complaint. That complaint was mysteriously dropped after Detective Tae-sung visited said neighbor. Kim's expression flickered. We haven't been provided this footage. Because it was just recovered from building archives. We're providing it now. Howon inserted a USB drive into the court system. Fair warning, Your Honor. It's disturbing. The footage played. Jeremy forced himself to watch. To see himself 6 months ago, groceries scattered on the hallway floor, Tae-sung's hand fisted in his hair, dragging him toward their door while he begged. Please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to forget the... Shut up. Get inside before I make this worse. The door slammed. The hallway was empty except for spilled vegetables and Jeremy's broken dignity. In the courtroom, someone gasped. Jeremy's hands were shaking. Daniel grabbed one, squeezed hard. This is one incident, Howon said quietly. We have 3 more videos like this. Testimony from neighbors who heard screaming. Medical records showing patterns of injury consistent with systematic abuse. Detective Park's sworn statement about what he witnessed at the factory. Your Honor, at what point does circumstantial evidence become overwhelming proof? The judge was quiet for a long moment. We'll adjourn for today. I need to review all evidence in chambers. He looked at Jeremy, and something in his expression had shifted. Mr. Frost, I want you to know this court takes allegations of abuse seriously. It was the first time anyone in authority had said that to him. Jeremy nodded, not trusting his voice. Outside, Daniel found him in the bathroom, hands braced against the sink, trying not to vomit. I had to watch it, Jeremy said. Had to see myself begging him not to hurt me and know that everyone in that courtroom was judging whether I was a good enough victim. Hey. Daniel turned him around, hands on his shoulders. Look at me. Jeremy looked. You were my hero growing up, Daniel said, voice fierce. Not because you were perfect or because you never made mistakes. You were my hero because you were kind. Because you played cello like it was the only thing that mattered. Because you made me feel like I mattered. Danny. Let me finish. Daniel's eyes were wet. When you married him, I was angry. Felt like you chose him over me. But watching that video, seeing what you endured, understanding why you pushed me away, his voice cracked. You were protecting me. Even when it meant being alone. Even when it meant suffering in silence. I should have asked for help sooner. Maybe. But you're asking now. You're fighting now. You're standing in front of cameras and courts and the whole damn country saying this happened and it was wrong. Daniel pulled him into a hug. You're still my hero, Hyung. You always will be. Not because you survived, though that's amazing. But because you're still standing here, still fighting, still believing people can be good. I don't know how you do it. But I'm so damn proud to be your brother. Jeremy broke then. Sobbed into Daniel's shoulder while his brother held him and didn't try to fix it, just let him feel it. When the tears finally stopped, Jeremy pulled back. Thank you, he whispered. Always. That evening, back in the hotel suite, Jeremy picked up his cello. He hadn't played, really played, since before the shooting. Physical therapy had been focused on basic function, not artistry. But tonight, he needed to remember who he was before Taesung. Who he could be after. He started with something simple. A Bach prelude. But halfway through, his fingers found something else. Elgar. The piece he'd been playing 5 years ago when Seojin first saw him. The notes came rough at first, rusty. His side ached. His hands weren't as steady as they used to be. But the music was still there. It had survived everything. Seojin appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound. Jeremy saw him and kept playing, poured every emotion of the past weeks into the strings, fear and rage and hope and grief and love, all of it tangled together in Elgar's melancholy. When the last note faded, Seojin was crying. I can still feel it, Jeremy said quietly. The music. He didn't take everything. Seojin crossed to him, knelt beside the chair, pressed his forehead to Jeremy's knee. You're the strongest person I've ever known, he whispered. I'm terrified. That's what makes it strength. Jeremy's hand found Seojin's hair, carded through it gently. What happens now? He asked. Now we wait for the judge's ruling. We keep fighting. We heal. Seojin looked up. And whatever you decide about us, about bonds, about everything, I'm here. No pressure. No expectations. Just here. That's enough, Jeremy said. And meant it. The judge's ruling came 3 weeks after the press conference. After reviewing all evidence presented, Judge Kim's voice echoed through the courtroom. This court finds that the bond between Jeremy Frost and Taesung was maintained through coercion, abuse, and systematic violation of Mr. Frost's autonomy. Therefore, the bond is hereby dissolved, effective immediately. Jeremy felt something break open in his chest. Freedom. Actual, legal freedom. Furthermore, the judge continued, Detective Taesung's conviction on charges of assault, kidnapping, and abuse of power stands. Sentencing will proceed as scheduled. Taesung lunged across the courtroom barrier, guards barely restraining him. His mine. The law says. The law, Judge Kim interrupted coldly, says you no longer have any claim to Mr. Frost. Bailiff, remove him. As Taesung was dragged from the courtroom, still screaming, Jeremy sat perfectly still. It was over. 3 years of hell. Weeks of legal battles. And it was finally, actually over. Howard squeezed his shoulder. You're free. Jeremy nodded, not trusting his voice. Daniel wrapped him in a hug. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Jeremy's eyes found Seo-jin, standing at the back of the courtroom in a black suit, expression carefully neutral. And Jeremy knew, with absolute certainty, what he wanted to do next. That evening, Jeremy's heat began. It wasn't the violent, forced onset Taesung used to trigger. This was natural, gentle, his body finally trusting that it was safe enough to drop its guard. He was in Seo-jin's penthouse, back in the space where this had all begun, in the guest wing that had become his, sitting on the bed when the first wave hit. Warmth spreading through his limbs. Skin hypersensitive. The overwhelming need for, not just any alpha, him. Jeremy found Seo-jin in his office, working late. Looked up when Jeremy entered, immediately read his body language. Your heat started. Statement, not question. Yes. Seo-jin stood, already moving toward the door. I'll have Minute Ho bring suppressants. You should. Seo-jin. Jeremy caught his wrist. Stop. Seo-jin froze. Jeremy, you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. Jeremy pulled him closer, watched Seo-jin's pupils dilate as Jeremy's heat scent hit him. The bond is dissolved. I'm legally free. And I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. You're in heat. You can't consent. I've been thinking about this for weeks. Since before the ruling. Since before the trial. Jeremy's voice was steady despite the heat curling through his veins. I want this. But I need to know, can you tell the difference? Between wanting me and wanting an Omega in heat. Seo-jin's breath shuddered. I've wanted you for 5 years. Heat or no heat, suppressants or not, bonded or free, I've wanted you, Jeremy. Not your designation. You. Then stay. Jeremy guided Seo-jin's hand to his chest, where his heart was hammering. Stay with me. Bond with me. Not because biology demands it, but because I'm asking you to. Jeremy, Seo-jin's control was fracturing, Jeremy could see it. If we do this, if I bond you, there's no going back. It's permanent. And I'm not good, I'm not safe, you're mine. Jeremy pulled him down into a kiss, tasted desperation and restraint. And I'm yours. Not because I have to be. Because I choose to be. Seo-jin broke the kiss, hands trembling where they cupped Jeremy's face. I need you to say it. Explicitly. That you want this. I want this. I want you. I want the bond. Jeremy met his eyes. Make me yours, Seo-jin. Really yours. The last thread of Seo-jin's control snapped. They didn't make it to the bedroom. Seo-jin lifted Jeremy onto the desk, scattering papers and pens, mouth finding Jeremy's neck where Taesung's mark was already fading. Jeremy gasped, hands fisting in Seo-jin's hair, heat making everything sharper, more intense, more necessary. Tell me if you change your mind, Seo-jin breathed against his skin. Any moment, any second, you say stop and I stop. I don't care how far we've gone, I don't care what my instincts are screaming, you say stop and I stop. I won't. Jeremy pulled him closer. I trust you. Seo-jin made a sound like something breaking. You shouldn't. But I do. They moved together, frantic and tender, desperate and careful all at once. Seo-jin kept asking, are you sure, is this okay, do you want this, and Jeremy kept answering yes, yes, yes until words became meaningless. When they finally stumbled to the bedroom, Seo-jin laid Jeremy down like he was something precious. Looked at him in the lamplight, flushed and wanting and choosing this freely. I don't deserve you, Seo-jin whispered. No, Jeremy agreed. But I'm giving myself to you anyway. Seo-jin's eyes were wet. Why? Because you've never once made me feel like I owed you this. Never made me feel like my body was payment for protection. Jeremy reached up, traced Seo-jin's jaw. You waited. You let me choose. Even when it meant you might lose me, you let me choose. I'd wait forever. I know. That's why I'm not making you wait anymore. They came together slowly this time. Carefully. Seo-jin mapping every inch of Jeremy's skin like he was memorizing scripture, Jeremy learning the landscape of Seo-jin's body, the scars, the tension, the way he shook when Jeremy touched him. When Seo-jin finally pressed inside him, Jeremy gasped at the rightness of it. This was what bonding was supposed to feel like. Choice and desire and trust wound so tightly together they became indistinguishable. Jeremy. Seo-jin's voice was wrecked. I'm going to do it. Jeremy tilted his head, exposing his neck. Bond me, please. Are you absolutely certain? In answer, Jeremy guided Seo-jin's mouth to his neck. To the spot where a bond bite would take. I've never been more certain of anything. Seo-jin's teeth grazed the spot. Hesitated. Please, Jeremy whispered. I choose you. I choose this. I choose us. The bite was sharp and sweet and overwhelming. Pain and pleasure crashed together. Jeremy's body arched, a cry tearing from his throat as the bond settled into place. Permanent, absolute, chosen. And suddenly he could feel everything. Every emotion Seo-jin had been carefully controlling, holding back, hiding behind walls of discipline. 5 years of longing. Weeks of terror when Jeremy was shot. Devotion so deep it bordered on worship. And underneath it all, self-hatred, the belief that he didn't deserve this, that he'd somehow taint Jeremy just by touching him. Oh, Jeremy breathed. Oh, Seo-jin. You've been in love with me this whole time. Seo-jin pulled back, tears streaming down his face. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you needed time. Space. Freedom to choose without the pressure of knowing, his voice broke. I didn't want to trap you with feelings you might not be able to return. Jeremy pulled him down, tasted salt and devotion. I'm not there yet. I can't say I love you. Not yet. But I will be. I can feel it, in the bond. How I'm going to feel. Give me time, and I'll catch up. I know. Seo-jin pressed their foreheads together. I can wait. I've been waiting 5 years. I can wait however long you need. It won't be that long. Jeremy smiled. I can feel you now. Know you now. The bond, he gasped as another wave of emotion hit him. You're terrified. Of losing me. Of not being enough. Of being the monster you'll eventually realize I am. Seo-jin's voice was hollow. Of you waking up one day and regretting this. Regretting me. Jeremy felt tears on his own cheeks now. I won't. You can't know that. Yes I can. Because I can feel your soul now, Seo-jin. And it's not as dark as you think it is. They held each other as the bond settled fully. As Jeremy's heat crested and broke. As two broken people became something new, not fixed, but healing. Not perfect, but choosing each other anyway. When morning came, they were still tangled together. No going back, Seo-jin whispered. No going back, Jeremy agreed. And meant it. The underground venue in Itaewon hadn't changed in 5 years. Same exposed brick walls. Same mismatched chairs. Same single spotlight that flickered if you breathed on it wrong. The kind of place that didn't advertise, that only existed if you knew where to look. Jeremy stood backstage, cello in hand, and tried to remember how to breathe. You don't have to do this, Seo-jin said quietly beside him. Not hovering, just present. The way he'd learned to be over the past 6 months, supportive without being suffocating. I know. Jeremy adjusted his grip on the bow. But I want to. This is where it started, 5 years ago. Feels right to come back here. Through the bond, he felt Seo-jin's pride and lingering worry tangled together. They'd both gotten better at managing the constant emotional feedback, learning when to share and when to shield, but some things still bled through. I'll be watching, Seo-jin said. Just like last time. Except this time. This time I know you're there. Jeremy turned, kissed him quickly. This time I want you there. The stage manager called 5 minutes. Seo-jin squeezed Jeremy's hand once and disappeared into the audience. Jeremy walked onto the stage alone. The crowd was small, maybe 40 people, the kind who came to underground venues on Thursday nights looking for something real. A few recognized him, he saw phones come out, whispers ripple through the room. 6 months ago, that would have sent him into panic. Now, he just settled into the chair, positioned his cello, and found Seojin in the third row. Their eyes met. Seojin nodded. "You've got this." Jeremy drew the bow across the strings and began to play. Not Elgar this time. Something new. A piece he'd been composing over the past months, something that captured everything he'd survived and everything he'd become. Pain and hope wound together. Trauma and healing speaking the same language. The music poured out of him, and for the first time since Taesung broke his arm, Jeremy felt completely whole. When the last note faded, the audience was silent for 3 heartbeats. Then they erupted. Jeremy stood, bowed, and walked off stage with his head high. Found Seojin waiting in the wings, looking at him like he'd just witnessed something sacred. "That was," Seojin's voice caught. "You were extraordinary." I felt it again. Really felt it. Jeremy set down the cello carefully. The music. My music. Not tainted by him anymore. Just mine. Always was. Seojin pulled him close, pressed a kiss to his temple. "You ready to go home?" Home. Not the penthouse. Not a gilded cage. An apartment they'd chosen together. Smaller, warmer, filled with Jeremy's music and Seojin's books and the life they were building piece by piece. "Yeah," Jeremy said. "Let's go home." The apartment was in Hanam-dong, 3rd floor, with a balcony that overlooked a small park. Nothing like Seojin's penthouse. No floor-to-ceiling windows, no luxury that screamed wealth and power. Just space that was theirs. Jeremy made tea while Seojin changed out of his suit. Domestic. Normal. The kind of normal Jeremy had thought he'd never have again. Daniel texted. Seojin called from the bedroom. "Wants to know if we're still on for Sunday dinner." "Tell him yes. And tell him to bring Ji-woo." Jeremy smiled, thinking of his brother's girlfriend. Kind, patient, perfect for Daniel. "I like her." "So do I. She's not afraid of me." "That's because she's smarter than you." Seojin appeared in the doorway, casual clothes replacing the armor of his business suit. Still dangerous. Still deadly. But softer around the edges than he'd been 6 months ago. Therapy was helping. Both individual and couples counseling, working through trauma and trust and learning how to be partners instead of savior and saved. It wasn't perfect. Some days were harder than others. Jeremy still had nightmares sometimes. Seojin still struggled with letting Jeremy have independence without hovering. But they were trying. That's what mattered. "I saw her today," Jeremy said as Seojin joined him on the couch. "After the trial." "Huh." "The Omega from the courthouse steps. The one who said I saved them." Jeremy settled against Seojin's chest, felt his steady heartbeat through the bond. "They came to the performance tonight. Told me they've been free for 6 months now. Started college. Have a girlfriend. Are happy." Seojin's arms tightened around him. "You did that. We did that." The press conference, the trial, the media attention, it forced the conversation. Jeremy thought about the legislative changes slowly making their way through Parliament. New protections for Omegas. Faster dissolution processes for abusive bonds. It's not enough yet. But it's something. "You became a symbol." "I didn't want to be a symbol. I just wanted to be free." Jeremy tilted his head back, looked at Seojin. "But if my story helps others get free too, then maybe it was worth it." "You're remarkable." Seojin kissed him softly. "You know that. You tell me every day. Because it's true every day." They sat in comfortable silence, tea cooling on the table, the city humming beyond their windows. 6 months ago, Jeremy had been in a hospital bed, healing from a gunshot wound and fighting for legal freedom. 6 months ago, everything had been uncertain. Now he was bonded to a man who loved him fiercely. Now he had his brother back in his life. Now he could play cello without feeling like Taesung's ghost was standing over him. Now he was free. "Seojin?" Jeremy said quietly. "Him? I love you." Seojin went very still. Through the bond, Jeremy felt shock and joy and disbelief crash together. "You?" Seojin's voice was wrecked. "You've never said that before." "I know. I needed to be sure. Needed to know it was real and not just trauma bonding or gratitude or biology." Jeremy turned to face him fully. "But I am sure now. I love you. Not because you saved me. Not because of the bond. But because of who you are. Who we are together. Seojin's eyes were wet. Jeremy. You're still a monster sometimes. You still deal with dangerous people and do morally questionable things. You'll never be a good man by conventional standards. Jeremy cupped Seojin's face, thumbs brushing away tears. But you're good to me. Good for me. And that's enough. I don't deserve this. Seojin's voice was barely a whisper. Probably not. Jeremy smiled. But I'm giving it to you anyway. Seojin kissed him then, desperate and tender, grateful and overwhelmed. Through the bond, Jeremy felt everything. 5 years of waiting, 6 months of uncertainty, and now this moment where everything clicked into place. When they broke apart, both were shaking. I love you too, Seojin said, like he was making a vow. In case that wasn't obvious from the bond. In case you needed to hear it in words. I needed to hear it. They held each other as Seoul continued its business outside. Millions of lives, millions of stories, and theirs was just one among many. But it was theirs. Chosen. And real. Later that night, Jeremy stood on their balcony, looking out at the park below. A couple walked hand in hand. A mother pushed a stroller. An old man fed pigeons. Normal life. Beautiful in its ordinariness. Seojin joined him, wrapping a blanket around Jeremy's shoulders against the autumn chill. What are you thinking about? Seojin asked. About that text. The wrong number. Jeremy leaned back against him. If my autocorrect hadn't messed up, if I'd reached Hajin instead of you, where would I be right now? Probably still with Taesung. Or worse. Yeah. Jeremy was quiet for a moment. I used to think it was the worst mistake of my life. Sending that text to a stranger. But now I think maybe it was the best mistake I ever made. Jeremy turned in Seojin's arms. Because it led me here. To you. To freedom. To myself. Seojin pressed a kiss to Jeremy's forehead. No regrets. About you? Never. Jeremy smiled. About the journey to get here? Some days. But then I remember that Omega at my performance, or Daniel's happiness, or the way you look at me like I'm something precious. And I think, maybe it was all worth it. The pain. The fear. The fight. Because it led me to this moment. This moment. Standing on a balcony with the man I love, free and healing and choosing my own future. Jeremy's voice was fierce. This moment right here. That's what I fought for. What we both fought for. Seojin held him tighter. What happens now? Now. Jeremy considered. Now we live. We heal. We build something worth having. We take it one day at a time. That's it. That's everything. And somewhere in Seoul, in a city of 8 million souls, 2 broken people stood on a balcony and watched the world continue spinning. They weren't fixed, maybe they never would be. But they were together. They were free. They were home. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right one. Sometimes monsters can love. And sometimes, freedom is just choosing who gets to hold your heart. This was their story. This is how it ended. Or rather, how it began.